I thought
Thank you.
best way to approach this was actually to start at the end, which is current day and the place you currently sit. Releasing an incredibly intimate book to the world, which details the sexual abuse you and your family suffered at the hands of your father. And I wondered what it's like talking about this stuff and letting the world in. The book hasn't been released yet, but the world is about to come in. And what it's like being on the eve of that.
On the edge. I'm a little bit nervous. We all have, by which I mean my family, we all have varying, we're all in varying states of nervousness about it. And my nephew put it best to me recently. He said, I actually didn't think this, like anybody would ever know about this. And now everybody is going to know. And we think we're approaching that as a really good thing because it's, I believe very firmly in accountability. I've tried to teach my children since they were very little that their actions bring consequences, and if they do something, they must be accountable for it. And the book, because of the circumstances that my family is currently in, is our accountability.
How can we talk about this? Because I know I want
Just
people to buy.
ask.
Yeah, I want people to buy the book. But for those listeners who don't know what we're talking about, like I don't know how much detail you want to get into, but can you sort of explain the situation and what we're talking about, and where we can kind of go from there?
Sure. So, like any woman in the world, I have had a bunch of experiences, traumatic experiences that cover the spectrum from, just plain out discrimination and sexism through sexual harassment to sexual abuse. I'm not saying everybody's had that experience, but there's plenty of us. And when I sat down and started writing the book, you have a unique, it's almost like you're hovering above your life, right? You have, for the first time, you have the opportunity to look at everything that's happened to you, decide what you're going to put in and what you're going to leave out, and you start maybe for the first time to see some themes developing. And I suppose that was one of the things that I had to face. So I was sexually abused by a neighbour when I was very young, and then by my father, and I never told anybody, ever. And in fact, I buried it completely, which, if you know anything about how trauma works, is what often happens. The mind will bury the memories to protect itself. And I'd had kind of flashes of memory over the years. And then there was an inciting incident, and I won't give the whole story away, but in 2018, which is quite recently, I got a phone call from my sister, and it all came out. And stuff that I didn't know came out. And we have been on a path since then to helping each other heal. And I think what that phone call gave me was very important, because by design, perpetrators of this kind of harm isolate their victims. They want their victims to feel alone and as if they're the only one, because then they're less likely to tell anybody. And that was the case with us. As soon as my sister made that phone call, which was a very dramatic phone call, very dramatic, I had community, right? I was no longer alone. And that's actually been, in a funny way, the basis of the work that I'm now doing with the charity I've co-founded with Zoe Lawton, Taika. It's based on two facts. Number one, perpetrators very rarely stop at one victim. So, you know that hashtag not all men? There's something to that. We're getting off the point a little bit here, but there's something to that, because when you hear that statistic of 1 in 3 women have experienced some kind of sexual harm in there, that's a big number. 1 in 3. You know, you look around any room and, you know, that has 3 women in it.
Well, it's even more. You look at a family unit.
Correct.
And I think, if I can, like, I've been really quiet in the first 15, 20 minutes of this, because the power and the enormity of what you're discussing and what you're talking about is, I don't know, the words jumped off the page at me today when I was reading some of the chapters, and I was visibly distressed. And even coming into this recording, I didn't know how to approach it, because it's such a chunky topic. And when you're talking to someone who's an expert in the matter, or someone who works in that, it's one thing. But when you're talking to someone who it actually happened to, it's a completely different experience. And
Can I just tell you something there? Most experts who talk about this issue will also have lived experience.
Yeah.
But go on.
No, but there's an awkwardness around the topic, obviously.
Okay, so there's a reason for that. And that is one of the things that I am trying to raise as a national conversation with my work. So lots of people, you're not the first, I'm sorry, to say, you know, why did you write about this? How can we talk about this? My experience is not unusual. This is so common. I mean, think about that statistic again. This is so common in families and in schools and universities and society in general. The only thing we don't do is talk about it. So that's one of the reasons why I've written the book, because, and I'm not the first to do that. A notable example would be Shibori Ito, I think I've got that name right, with Black Box Diaries, who was the Japanese journalist who was raped and wrote a book about it, about her experience, a very powerful experience afterwards of being gaslit and, denied her truth. There's Chanel Miller, who wrote Know My Name, about the Stanford University rape. There's lots of us trying to put our stories out there, but as a society, we do not talk about this enough. So that's one of the things I'm trying to address. And one of the things I strongly want to do is remove any awkwardness that you or anybody else might feel talking about this. So I don't feel awkward. I get that you felt it.
And that's probably a cliche response
heavy,
from the other side as well, right? Of people going, well, I don't really know how to approach it. How do we approach it?
Yeah.
But this is what we're doing.
That's one of the things that we do, Zoe Lawton and I already do, is give workshops, which we call What Would You Say? Which teaches people how to receive, what's the word I'm looking for? Revelations from a whānau member or an employee or a colleague, whether it's harassment or assault or whatever it might be. People tie themselves in knots because they're so shocked. It's a physical thing. When somebody reveals something deeply uncomfortable and personal to you, your body goes into shock and you literally don't know what to say. So what do you say? Something like, oh, was it really that bad? Are you sure? And we know that a survivor's journey, I used the word, a survivor's experience can be completely transformed, good or bad, by the reaction of the first person that they disclose to. So, and it's not rocket science. All you need to say, you don't need to kind of put yourself in the foxhole with them. You just need to say, that's awful. I'm sorry that happened to you. How can I help you?
This is
something we all need to learn, I think.
This is your story, but there's also some other it's other people's story too, right? It's your sisters and your nephews and your dads. What's their they're waiting for this to come out too, right? Like, are you all quite tightly linked? Not with your dad, but with the other
Yeah.
survivors
Yeah.
about the
My
story
sister's
being
coming
published?
over for the launch.
Yeah.
We wanted to be together here in Aotearoa when the book actually hits the stands. So when can I tell you a bit of the story about how the book came about?
Yeah, please.
So back in 2018, when I set up the Me Too NZ project at Stuff, I had several publishers come to me back then and say, hey, we'd be really interested in you writing your story. And I was like, no, I've got no time for that. I'm too busy. And I really didn't, because I've written a book before. I wrote a book in 2015. It wasn't my story. It was somebody else's. And I know how hard it is to write, 80,000 words and make it good. And there's not really any money in it, So I was busy. I said, thank you very much for your interest, but it's not the right time. And then in 2023, I was made redundant from Stuff. And I was like, oh, well, I've probably got time now. And the interesting thing about that is that if I had written it in 2018, many of the events in the latter part of the book hadn't even happened yet.
Yeah.
So, the universe delivers. It turned out to be the right time. But when I did start exploring the possibility of writing this book, I went to all of my family and said, how do you feel about that? And we took it very slowly, and they were given veto over everything. And then in the latter stages of just before delivery of the book, I actually flew to Melbourne to see my sister and my nephew. My daughter lives there as well, so bonus. And just like really talk them through what was in the book and give them another opportunity to say, oh, yeah, I've been thinking about it, and nah. So, yeah, we talk quite often about what it's going to be like when it's out there, and we're very connected.
Do you scenario plan? Like what
all the time, mate. I've been in the media for 40 years.
Yeah.
Like, I literally make up the quotes in my head when I wake up in the middle of the night. Yeah, I do. I've learned to be very risk averse because of all the stuff. Lots of it's in the book that has happened to me, in the spotlight, in the public spotlight. So yeah, I do.
Do you expect your dad to read the book?
No. No, I don't. I mean, it's not inconceivable that he might, but at this stage, no.